They're looking for them, so I guess I'll go ahead and make my motion. Go ahead. This time, the defendant moves for a judgment of acquittal on both counts 1 and 2. With regard to count 1, murder in the first degree, as the court is aware, the state is required, when viewing the light most favorable to them as a non-moving party, to generate question of fact on each and every element. As the defense's position, there are several elements with regard to count 1, murder in the first degree. The state has not generated a jury question on. The first element is that during the time frame of August 4th through and including August 30th, 2017, in the state of Iowa, the defendant killed Sterling Koehn. It's the defense's position that the state has failed to generate a jury question on whether the defendant himself actually killed Sterling Koehn. Another element that we believe that the state has failed to prove or generate a jury question on, even when the evidence is viewed in the light most favorable to the state, is that Mr. Koehn acted shown by evil or unlawful purpose as defined in jury instructions. In this case, the state has not produced any evidence whatsoever at any time Mr. Koehn acted with malice aforethought. In fact, he was doing the evidence, even when viewed in the light most favorable to the state, is that even when he was engaging in other wrong acts, for example, using a credit card of his employer to purchase food, to supply to Sterling and to his family, Mr. Koehn himself actually delivered Sterling. There's absolutely no evidence, even when viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, that the defendant acted with malice aforethought. The next element that is our position that the state has not generated a jury question on conceivably bleeds over into count 2, but I would take up now. They must show that Mr. Koehn did sub B, which is that Mr. Koehn, by an intentional act or series of intentional acts, used unreasonable force, torture, or cruelty that resulted in bodily injury, or that was intended to cause bodily injury, and that resulted in Sterling Koehn's death. There is no evidence that has been introduced in this matter that shows that Mr. Koehn acted by an intentional act or series of acts, used unreasonable force, torture, or cruelty to result in bodily injury that resulted in Sterling's death. In fact, I believe the state's allegation is that, for lack of a better term, that Sterling was neglected to death, which in and of itself is not an intentional act or series of acts, used unreasonable force, torture, or cruelty. Finally, it is the defense's position that the state must create a jury question on whether Sterling Koehn's death occurred under circumstances that showed an extreme indifference to human life. The defense's position, the state has not generated a jury question. Now, with regard to murder in the first degree, with regard to count 2, counts of child endangerment that Mr. Koehn is charged with, there are also elements that we believe the state has not generated a jury question on. The state is required to prove that on the same time frame, August 4th through and including August 30th, the defendant was the parent of Sterling Koehn. That is stipulated. We have no problem with that. Sterling's age has been established. However, the state is required to prove under the charged sections that Mr. Koehn acted with knowledge that he created a substantial risk to Sterling's physical health. It is our position that the state has not generated a jury question on the matter of whether Mr. Koehn acted with knowledge that he was creating a substantial risk to Sterling Koehn's physical health or safety. Another alternative under 726.6, sub 1 would be subsection B, which I've already announced regarding intentionally committed an act or series of acts that exposed Sterling to or used unreasonable force, torture, or cruelty resulting in physical injury to Sterling. As I stated before, the state did not generate a jury question on that. Finally, the state is required to prove under subsection C2D that Mr. Koehn intentionally deprived Sterling of necessary food and appropriate to his age, as well as he was reasonably able to provide it, and that Sterling suffered a substantial physical harm, and the harm to Sterling was a serious injury. And even doing the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, Mr. Koehn, the evidence has shown Mr. Koehn was working, that Ms. Harris was the primary caregiver. There's nothing that Mr. Koehn himself did to deprive Sterling of necessary food appropriate to his age. In fact, the evidence that came in through Agent Turbin was that Mr. Koehn did in fact feed Sterling. And the last time that he fed Sterling was approximately 2 weeks beforehand, well before putting anthropological evidence, the magnets were laid, or before, I don't know how long, we don't know how long the dermatitis was there, but it appears that at some point Mr. Koehn was Sterling, but that Cheyenne Harris was primarily responsible for that. So we do not believe that the state has generated a jury question on that element either. Accordingly, Your Honor, this time, for the reasons I've stated, we move for judgment of acquittal on both counts.
Who's arguing?
I am.
Proceed.
On count one, there's no question that the defendant's actions killed Sterling Koehn. We know that that child sat for at least 10 to 14 days in his own feces and urine and filth and wasn't touched or moved during that time. We know that he wasn't fed, he wasn't hydrated. We know that the defendant lived in the home, that he was home most every day, and was fully aware that he had a child there, and that he did absolutely nothing to care for that child. The facts that have been presented to the court make clear that we have met all elements of this crime. In regards to amounts of forethought, if you look at any of the different alternatives, leaving some they do it out of actual hatred or with an evil or unlawful purpose. Any of those things can apply in this particular case from what we've seen from the facts. In regards to Section B, intentional act or series of intentional acts, torture or cruelty that results in bodily injury. The fact what that child had to go through and that room that he sat in for the length of time that he did, that could be nothing but torture or cruelty. That was an intentional act leaving him there. Every time the defendant walked by that door, it was a choice, it was an act. Every time it was an act. Extreme indifference to human life would be a similar argument in the sense of I don't know how much more you can get, how much more extreme you can get than a case like this for the indifference to the life of a child. On Section 2, I think the facts have been clear that he did have knowledge he created a substantial risk. It's very easy to sit back and say, well, it wasn't my job to feed the baby, but that's not the point. He doesn't get alleviated of his responsibility as a parent in the home just because it's not his job. He knew that child was there, and he was responsible for that child's health and safety. The same argument that I made in regards to Section B would apply in subsection D. I don't think there's any question that that child was willfully deprived of the necessary things that it needed to live. The defense argued that the defendant did nothing, or that nothing the defendant did was to deprive Sterling, but the bottom line is the defendant did nothing to care for Sterling, and that's why we're here, and that's why he's dead. The state would argue, in looking at the evidence, most reasonable, in the light most favorable to the state, the state has clearly met its burden, and we should go forward.
Okay. Evidence is sufficient to withstand a motion. The judgment of acquittal when viewing the evidence in the light most favorable to the state and drawing all reasonable inferences in the state's favor. There is substantial evidence in the record to support the finding. The defendant is charged in 2 counts: 1, murder in the first degree; 2, child endangerment causing the death of a child. As to count 1, the court believes at this stage that in order to overcome a motion for directed or verdict of acquittal, that sometime between August 4 and August 30, 2017, the defendant, by an intentional act or a series of intentional acts, used torture or cruelty towards SK. The terms torture and cruelty are not technical terms. Those are terms to be interpreted and decided by the jury based on the evidence presented. The court believes there is substantial evidence in this record in order to allow the jury to determine whether a father allowing a 4-month-old baby, assuming the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, sat in his own filth for between 9 and 14 days without sufficient food and without sufficient water, resulting in his death from dehydration, malnutrition, and lack of medical care, leading to bacterial infection due to a diaper rash, constitutes torture or cruelty. The next element is whether the child is under 14. That's been proven. Whether the child has died of torture or cruelty, there's sufficient evidence to believe there's a causational connection between the death and the acts, and whether the defendant committed the act of malice aforethought is a jury question based on all the circumstances. It is important to note State versus Porter, State versus Buenaventura, malice may but need not be inferred from the commission of the crime of child endangerment. Important to note is that the defendant also made before that proposed instruction as well. So it's recognizing it's not just a hatred, but it can be inferred from the acts of the defendant, or in this case, the non-acts of the defendant. It may be inferred simply from the commission of the act or crime of child endangerment. As to the sixth element, which is the showing of an extreme inconsiderate life, that term also is a non-technical term, as identified in State versus Thompson, and it is something that under these circumstances, the jury must be entitled to have the opportunity to review. There is substantial evidence in this record looking at a life in a life respect of the state. Pass the state's closing evidence on that issue. As to child endangerment causing death, as I understand the state's approach, it is not on the element of torture or cruelty, but more on the element of the denial of necessary food, water, or health care. We've heard testimony of looking at the evidence in the light most favorable to the state, that the child was without water for a significant period of time, without food, and did not receive proper health care, as shown by dehydration, malnutrition, bacterial infection caused by severe diaper rash. It's been stipulated that the defendant is the father of SK. SK was sufficient evidence in the record based on his employment, his ability to borrow and get food from other sources, get assistance from neighbors, friends, colleagues when he needed for the child, that he had the reasonable ability to provide food, water, and health care, as shown that there's sufficient evidence for a jury to find that. I also believe there's sufficient evidence in this record for a jury to determine whether the child suffered substantial physical harm as a result of the denial of the certain medical care, food and water, and there is sufficient evidence for the jury to decide whether the child died as a result of that harm. As such, there is sufficient evidence in this record to have the state's case survive motion for directed verdict of acquittal at this time. Proceed to the state's case. Defendant's motion. Anything else from the state?
We found this is the CD that we played, the video that we played of the deposition. And we can just enter it as a public exhibit, go back to the jury.
And is there a transcript of that as well?
We did not have a transcript of it. If the court would like the CD, I can print off a copy of the court report's transcribing
You mean of the deposition?
of the right.
Yeah, why don't we do that so that there's actually a physical copy, not just a video? And I don't know for appellate purposes, but it's my understanding that we prefer that.
I would do that tonight.
Do you want a physical copy?
Uploading it from one.
We were planning on uploading.
We also have.
Uploading is fine. I want a written transcript, not just a video.
Okay, because we also participate in our video transcript that will always according to it.
Yeah.
Okay, and we
But
did
physical, a physical hard copy, I mean uploaded in a computer, not paper.
Okay.
I will throw that away. Correct.
So we're offering Exhibit 124, which is the video of David Nugent, and then tonight we will print off a copy of the transcript as well to offer it tomorrow,
Or just upload it.
or just upload it. So we'll do that.
All right. Any objection?
No objection.
Very good. So the video will not go back to the jury. Unlike the audio tape that was played,
Correct.
which is not according to the actual trial.
Correct.
And 911. Defendant's next witness available, or first witness available?
We actually had an issue with
Oh, yeah. No address.
your interactions with her that day was under the influence of any illegal drug.
She didn't appear to be, no.
How about alcohol?
No.
Any medication?
No, none that was apparent.
Anything that was apparent that would affect her judgment?
No.
When you interviewed her, how would you describe her demeanor?
She was interactive. I mean, she answered the questions that I asked her. She elaborated on quite a few of the answers and was very cooperative.
Did she appear to be oriented to like time and place?
Yes.
Did she know where she was at?
Yes.
Did she know she was in a police car?
Yes.
Did she know she was talking to a police officer?
Yes, she did.
Did she appear to be coherent to you?
Yes.
Did she appear to understand your questions?
Yes.
Was she able to answer your questions by providing content that was appropriate in response to your questions?
Yes, she did.
And inappropriate content would be like if you ask somebody, what's your name, and they said cat, right?
Yes.
So she was able to provide information that matched what you were asking for.
She did.
Did she appear to be thinking clearly?
Yes.
Was she able to express herself in a way that you could understand her?
Yes.
During the time that you spent with Ms. Harris, did she appear, from your observations, to be depressed?
No.
Did she appear to be emotionally excited?
No.
And the last question, and this is a yes or no question, sir. During your time of 2.5 hours that you spent with Ms. Harris on August 30th, 2017, did she ever volunteer to you that she was depressed or suffering from depression?
No.
Nothing further.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Will this witness be excused?
He may.
You're free to leave. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The defense calls Willis Koehn.
Sir, face me. Raise your right hand. Do you promise the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, say, I do. I do. Have a seat.
Mr. Koehn, in front of you on the, you have that microphone there, you have the master show. Okay. Thank you. Can you please tell the jury your name?
Willis Koehn.
You may want to pull the mic just a little bit closer.
Okay, is that better?
Is the jury able to hear him? They're online, so I'm going to say, thank you, sir. Sir, where do you live?
Prior, Adair, Oklahoma,
And can you spell the name of the city?
Adair.
Who lives there with you?
My wife and grandson,
How long have you lived there?
just short of 3 years.
And what do you do for a living, sir?
Drive truck.
I want to talk with you about Zach. How do you know him?
Well, he's our son, our youngest.
Is he your biological son?
No, he's adopted.
Where was Zach born?
California.
When you adopted him, how old was he?
In the adoption, I'd say 2 years. I'm not positive on that.
He was about 2 years old when he came to live with you, or when
No, he was 2 months old when we came to live with us.
when the adoption process took a little bit of
Yes.
time? You said Zach was born in California. Where was he raised?
Well, he was in California. He was a year and a half when we moved from California to Iowa.
He grew up here in Iowa?
Yes, he grew up in Iowa.
Specifically, where about in Iowa?
Little town of McIntyre, Iowa.
Can you tell the jury where that's at?
That's northeast Iowa. I'm not sure how to describe the location. It's northeast Iowa. About 45 miles south, straight south of Rochester, Minnesota, just across the border into Iowa.
Where did Zach go to school at?
He went. We had our own church school, and he attended there.
And what church is that?
The Church of God in Christ Mennonite.
How many grades does that school have?
8.
Did Zach complete all those?
Yes.
Did he get any education beyond the 8th grade, to your knowledge?
No.
You know approximately how old he was when he finished the 8th grade?
13.
Do you know why Zach did not go beyond the 8th grade with his formal education?
Yes. Our church school only goes to the 8th grade, and being more agricultural based, we don't promote a lot of higher education, and he just found jobs locally once he was out of school.
So around 13 or 14, he found jobs?
A few odd ones here and there, not full time until he was a little older, until he was like 16.
In your faith, is it unusual for someone to only go to school through the 8th grade?
Well, it used to be. It's not so much that way anymore. There's quite a few that will go on to more schooling, go on to higher, to get jobs that require getting their associates or their degrees. We have several that have went into nursing,
Is McIntyre a small town?
Yes, very small.
Would you describe Zach as an emotional person?
I would, yes.
Does he frequently show other people how he's feeling?
When they get to know him as a friend, on the surface, no. But
We'll come back and talk with you in a little bit more about how he was raised, right? You mentioned that your grandson was with you. Who is your grandson's father?
Zach,
What's your grandson's name?
Caden,
Can you spell that, please?
Kaden.
How long has Katie lived with you?
He's lived with us almost his whole life.
Why has Katie lived with you for most of his life?
Because after he was born, Zach and his wife were having stresses in their marriage. His wife had quite a few emotional stresses, mental, and it caused a lot of stress in the marriage. And he was holding the full-time job by then, and they both felt it was best to give Caden the security he needed. So they asked my wife and I to take legal guardianship of him.
We need to clear something up for the jury. When you talk about Zach's wife, what is her name?
Sherry.
What's her full name?
Sherry Koehn.
And I just want to make sure the jury doesn't get confused. She is not Cheyenne Harris, correct?
No.
You said that both of them asked Katie, asked you and your wife to take care of Katie.
Yes, they asked us to take legal guardianship of him.
I'd like to talk with you now about Sterling. You live in Oklahoma and Zach lives in Iowa. Were you aware that Zach had another son named Sterling?
Yes.
How'd you find out about that?
He told us about it, and we also, since we moved to Oklahoma, him and Cheyenne, with him driving a truck, him and Cheyenne came through there several times on their way to, he was taking a load back to Dallas. They stopped in, and we know the last time they were there, before Sterling was born. She was pregnant with Sterling at that time.
And then when Sterling was actually born, did Zach call you?
Yes.
Did he tell you anything about the circumstances of Sterling's birth?
Yes.
In other words, that was kind of a common question. Do you know did he tell you where Sterling was born?
Yes.
Where at?
At their house.
Did he tell you who delivered Sterling?
Yes.
Who was that?
Zach.
You mentioned that Zach and Cheyenne came through when she was pregnant with Sterling. Did you ever have an opportunity to meet Sterling?
No.
Did you ever see pictures of Sterling?
I think one time Zach sent us a picture.
Now, we've talked a little bit about your faith, your church. I have a couple of questions about that. I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't want any of my questions to be offensive about that. So if I am, it's unintentional. I believe that you are Mennonite, is that correct?
Yes.
Within your community, what is the role of women in the home?
Generally, it would be that they would be the homemaker. They would take care of the house, raise the children, take care of the children. Because and yet, that in some cases that changes because of finances, that the women are taking jobs outside the home.
What would the role of the man or the father be in the Mennonite household?
Generally, it would be that they would be the one making a living, providing for the household.
Is that how Zach was raised?
Yes.
Sir, I'll ask you, within that family structure, if the man would realize that something's wrong with the family, Do we step up generally and help within your culture or within your faith?
Yes, generally.
Thank you, sir. I don't have any more questions for you.
Rob?
Can you explain that a little bit more? You just said yes generally.
Well, as much as possible, we like to take care of, our faith is very much family orientated. So we want the best for our children. If there's problems in the home, and that, yes, we will step in as much as possible, even though, the man is the one that generally is spending the day at work. And when he comes home, if there's needs, he tries to.
If your wife had become ill when your children were young, to take care of your family, would you step up and do some things around the house?
Yes, most generally, yes.
But you wouldn't let your children go without food, would you?
No.
You wouldn't let them go without appropriate clothing or bedding or things like that?
No.
You said Zach didn't have a full-time job until 16, correct?
Right.
He moved out when he was 16?
Somewhere around, no, it's probably more like 17.
16 or 17?
Yes. I'd say probably 17.
And I apologize, I don't remember if I have the correct word or not, but was he excommunicated?
Yes, from our faith.
Did I use the right word?
Yes.
And why was he excommunicated?
Because our faith has guidelines that we adhere to, and when they want to take their own way or don't want to live to those accordingly, they are called into council, and if they don't adhere to that, then they will end up being severed or excommunicated.
And that happened in Zach?
Yes.
So Zach's been out of your home for about 10 years.
10, maybe 12.
The last 3 years you've been in Oklahoma.
Yes.
Mostly had phone contact with
Yes.
him. You don't know during that time exactly how he was living his life, correct?
No.
You said that he gave you Caden when he was how old?
I'm not positive how young he was. It was within, he came to live with us 3 weeks old. Because I can say this, his mother felt like she was inadequate with her issues she was facing in her life. She felt inadequate to take care of him.
And so because she felt inadequate to take care of him, Zach didn't take on the responsibility to take care of him?
Well, he did as much as he could, but, they did not want to put him into a daycare situation, so they chose rather to move him to our home.
You said his wife, Sherry, had mental health issues and wasn't able to properly care for the child.
Yes.
So a decision was made by both her and Zach to give the child to you.
Yes.
You've had that child ever since?
Yes.
And although he's your grandchild, you've raised Caden like your own.
Yes.
And Zach is still married to Sherry Koehn, correct?
Yes.
You said when Sterling was born, Zach sent you one picture?
If I remember right, yes.
That was right at the beginning there?
Yes.
You yourself never met Sterling?
No.
You never saw Zach interact with Sterling?
No.
you were never in your son's home when Sterling was there.
No.
Now, you did have phone contact with your son, correct?
Yes.
After Sterling's birth, you were hearing things from him that he and Cheyenne were not getting along well. Is that right?
Yes.
Zach was telling you that Cheyenne was not a good housekeeper.
That's correct.
He'd come home from work and there'd be dishes in the sink or the floor was messy.
Yes.
He complained to you sometimes that he had to actually care for Nala, that he had to change her diapers sometimes because Cheyenne wasn't doing that.
Yes, that's correct.
He told you that he had to give Nala a bath sometimes.
Yes.
And he wasn't very happy about that.
Well, I don't know if I say he wasn't happy about it, but he just knew that was his responsibility, to see that she got cared for.
Oh, so he knew it was his responsibility. That if Cheyenne wasn't doing it, he needed to step up and
Yes.
take care of it. Yes?
Yes.
Did the defendant ever talk to you about Dallas, that Sterling wasn't his child?
He never did mention it to me. We heard it by a roundabout through some of his friends, and he never did talk to me directly about it.
That he had doubts?
Yeah, he never did mention that to me.
Did the defendant tell you how Sterling died?
No, I just remember the day that he texted me. I was on the truck. I was leaving Oklahoma City, heading back for Tulsa, and I got this text, and it was very brief. He said, "Dad," he said, "my boy died." So I pulled over then and communicated with him a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of details at that point.
What did he tell you happened?
He told me that he had came home that morning from being on the truck, and that he had went to bed, and then later Cheyenne woke him up and said there was something wrong with Sterling.
And he was dead.
Yes.
He also told you that morning that Cheyenne had fed Sterling.
I think that would be correct. It's a little hard to remember some of that.
Sure. Do you remember taking a deposition just last week?
Yes.
If I showed you that deposition, would that help refresh your memory? You said last week that he would tell you that Cheyenne had fed Sterling that particular morning.
I probably would need to see that.
Okay. I can show that to you. May I approach your honor?
You may.
And counsel, I'm on page 21, line 8.
Thank you.
So if you just click to look right there. That's the where you talked about it.
Yes, I believe this would be correct.
Okay. So did that help refresh your memory?
Yes.
So the day that Zach called you and told you that Sterling was dead, he did tell you that Cheyenne had fed Sterling that morning, correct?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that would be correct.
And that she had put him down for a nap and then he went to bed, correct?
Yes. Well, I'll back up a little bit. I think, I'm almost in my mind that he said when he came home that Cheyenne had said she had fed him and put him, because I think he told me that Sterling was sleeping when he went to bed. But that is, it's so hard to remember. That's over a year ago now, so.
Sure, understandable. But you'll agree with me after reading this, that last week you had said He told you Cheyenne fed him and put him down for a nap.
Yes, yes, yes.
Today, he may not be so sure that that's what he said.
Yeah, I'm not totally positive.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Redirect. Sir, Ms. Jones asked you about if your wife could help if you step up and take care of children as well. Do you recall that question?
Yes?
Thank you. I just need your answer on that. If your wife told you not to disturb your baby, would you follow her directions if you had a baby with her?
I guess if I knew it was being well taken care of, and she told me not to disturb it.
She told you that she was taking care of your children. Would you have any reason to doubt that?
No.
Thank you. That's all I have.
No, you won't.
probably about 37, 38 years.
Did you grow up in the same Mennonite community? Deb?
No.
She's a Mennonite?
Yes.
Oh.
No regret, Your Honor.
Can this witness be excused?
He may, Your Honor.
Is he released?
He is released.
May he remain in the courtroom?
He is asked to remain in the court, so I expect he will, yes.
Release from subpoena, can remain in the courtroom?
I may remain?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next witness.
Thanks, Bill. Danny Koehn, Your Honor.
Massage therapy.
Massage.
Seven, 38 years.
Did you grow up in the same?
Seven, 38 years.
Did you grow up in the same Mennonite community? Deb?
No.
She's a Mennonite?
Yes.
Oh.
No regret, Your Honor.
Can this witness be excused?
He may, Your Honor.
Is he released?
He is released.
May he remain in the courtroom?
He is asked to remain in the court, so I expect he will, yes.
Release from subpoena, can remain in the courtroom?
I may remain?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next witness.
Thanks, Bill. Danny Koehn, Your Honor.
You have a scheduled chiropractor for us when we're done.
Massage therapy.
Massage, yeah.
You know, all that moldy money the state has laying around. Sure, raise your right hand. You promise testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth. If so, say I do.
I do.
Have a seat. Pull that microphone in a little closer to you.
Before we begin, sir, you would ask me to get some water before you started, is that correct?
Sure.
Did you want to borrow water?
Sure.
And ask others. Oh, absolutely. Thank you. There you go, sir.
Thank you.
Can you state and spell your name, please?
Danny Koehn, DANNY KOEHN.
And is your last name sometimes pronounced Kane?
Yes, it's Kane or Cohen.
Sir, where do you live?
My address?
Well, just what city you live in.
Clarksdale, Mississippi,
How old are you?
32.
And what do you do for a living?
I'm a general contractor.
How long have you done that kind of work?
All my life, so about 14 years.
And are you married?
Yes.
I'm not going to try to trip you up. I'm just going to ask you how long you're married.
14 years.
And do you have children?
Yes,
How many children do you have?
5.
Sir, can you please tell the jury what your educational background is?
8th grade education,
Where did you go to school at?
Pine Grove Mennonite School.
Where is Pine Grove Mennonite School?
It was located by Chester, or Lime Springs, Iowa.
Can you tell us roughly where Chester, Lime Springs, Iowa is?
West of Cresco.
That's in northeast Iowa?
Yeah.
Do you have any other formal education beyond the 8th grade?
No.
I want to talk with you about Zach now. How do you know him?
He's my brother.
Are you older or younger than he is?
Older.
How much older are you?
About 3 years.
Did you grow up with him?
Yes.
In the same house?
Yes.
With the same parents?
Yes.
Where did he grow up?
McIntyre.
Is it also in Iowa?
Yes, McIntyre, Iowa.
You know how far he went to school?
8th grade.
Do you know whether your brother has any formal education beyond the 8th grade?
No.
I'm sorry, I asked him. I should ask it this way. Does he have any formal education beyond the 8th grade?
As far as I know, he don't.
Do you know why he doesn't have any formal education beyond the 8th grade?
I believe because we went to a private school,
And what kind of private school was that?
just a Mennonite school.
Growing up in your house, what was your father's role in the house?
What was what?
What was your father's role in the house and family?
He was the home provider, worked, paid the bills.
And what was your mother's role?
She took care of the house,
Who took care of the children?
both the parents.
Did your mom work outside the house?
No, she did not.
I want to talk with you about Zach's children now. Are you familiar with his son, Caden?
Yes.
How do you know Caden?
He would be my nephew.
You see Caden very often?
Probably once every 6 months, maybe.
I should ask this. Your father's testified. He lives in Oklahoma. Zach lives in Iowa. You live in Mississippi. Is there a reason why the family is spread out like that?
No.
Why did you move to Mississippi?
That's where my work ended up being.
I want to go back to Zach's children now. In addition to Katie, does he have another child, daughter?
Yes.
Who's that?
Her name's Nala.
And you know how old Nala is?
I do not.
Katie and Nala have the same mom.
No, they don't.
Who is Katie's mother?
Sherry Cohen,
And who is Nala's mother?
Cheyenne Harris.
Now, were you aware that he also had a son named Sterling?
Yes.
How did you find out about Sterling?
Zach.
How did you find out that he has another son named Sterling?
Zach called me when he was born.
How did he sound on the phone to you?
He was excited.
Do you know approximately how long after Sterling was born until he called you?
I would probably say within 15 minutes.
Did he tell you anything about how Sterling was born?
A little bit.
What did he tell you?
I guess he was born at home.
Did Zach tell you who delivered him?
I believe he did.
Did you ever have an opportunity to meet Sterling?
No, I did not.
Without going into what Zach may have said, in other words, I don't want to have maybe repeat specific things that Zach said, but did he ever talk about Sterling with you while Sterling was alive?
Yeah, he did.
During Sterling's life, how often did you talk with Zach?
Probably every few days.
And how often during those conversations during Sterling's life would Zach talk about Sterling?
Probably most of the time it got brought up.
Did you ever see any pictures of Sterling?
Yes, I did.
How'd you get those?
He sent them to me
How'd you send them to you?
through text messaging.
Do you have any idea approximately how many pictures of Sterling Zach sent to you?
I do not know.
How did you find out about Sterling's death?
Zach called me and said that he had passed away.
And in relation to Sterling's death, when did Zach call you?
I believe it was probably the next day.
Now, I believe at some point there was some discussion about whether Sterling was Zach's son. You recall conversations with Zach about that?
I think it was maybe a question at first.
Who raised the question?
I'm not sure. We were just talking about it. I think I might have asked him, and he didn't seem like he was really sure.
How early on in the conversations after Sterling was born did that conversation take place?
Probably within the first month.
Did you ever have any conversations with Zach about Sterling after that conversation? And I just mean in general talking about Sterling.
Yeah, we had a few conversations about him.
Thank you, sir. That's all the questions that I have for you.
Ross? Thank you. Let's start with that. So on more than one occasion, your brother told you that he didn't think he was the father of Sterling, correct?
I don't think more than one occasion.
Well, you said you had a couple conversations,
Yeah.
and I'm not trying to trick you. I thought that's what you meant. So how many times did he say that he may not be the father of Sterling?
I remember precisely maybe one time.
And there were other times that he talked about it?
I don't think we talked about him being the father or not being the father. We talked about a son, but not necessarily if he was the father or not.
I see. And he thought maybe he wasn't the father because he was gone a lot trucking when Sterling was conceived, right?
Correct.
That's what he told him,
I
correct?
believe so.
And he told you that shortly after Sterling was born?
hmm
Now, as I understand your testimony, sir, you grew up as the older brother of the defendant, correct?
Yes.
Grew up in the same home,
Yes.
and your parents provided you a stable environment, right?
Correct.
They didn't abuse you,
No.
they fed you,
Yep.
they clothed you,
Yes.
made sure if you needed medical attention that you received, right?
Right.
They did the same for the defendant, right?
Yes.
Were your parents good role models on how to be parents to a child?
I believe so.
Did you learn how to be a parent from observing your parents?
Yes.
And you have 5 children, right?
Yes.
And as I understand, your brother, the defendant, he interacted and actually took care of your children, right?
Yeah, he's babysat.
And quite a few times, right?
Yes.
So, did he babysit them when they were babies?
Yes.
Did he take care of all of their needs, including changing their diapers, feeding them, bathing them, clothing them?
Not all of those, no.
What did he do?
He would have made sure when we left, we would have left a bottle there if he needed to feed him. If the diaper needed to be changed, I'm sure he would have changed it, but it never was that long, I don't think.
Well, he knew how to give a baby a bottle, right?
Right.
He knew how to change a diaper, right?
Correct.
He knew when a baby would need a bottle, right?
Yep.
He knew when a baby would need a diaper change, right?
Yes.
And you trusted him to care for your children, correct?
Correct.
And you also were able to observe him interact with his son, Caden, correct?
Yes.
Was he able to take care of Caden properly?
Absolutely.
And you did the same with Nala, right?
Yes.
Was he able to take care of Nala properly?
Yes.
Did he know when Nala needed to be fed?
Yes.
Did he know when she needed to be fed when she was an infant?
I believe so,
Did he know when Nala needed her diaper changed?
as far as I know.
And was he able to change the diaper if
I-
he needed to?
Yeah, I believe so.
And did you ever see him have any experience with any other children besides your children and his own children as far as providing care?
No, I did not.
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Yes,
Do they have children?
yeah,
Did Mr. Koehn, the defendant, provide any care to your other nephews or nieces?
not that I'm aware of.
Now, you described when you saw the defendant interact with Nala, you described him as a real good father, right?
Correct,
You stand by that?
yes,
He also said that his kids were his first priority. Did you say that?
yes,
Do you stand by that?
yes,
He also said that he took really good care of his kids. Do you stand by that?
yes,
Did you say that statement?
I believe I did.
Now, as I understand, you never met Sterling, right?
No,
And you learned when Sterling was born by receiving a phone call from the defendant, correct?
correct,
And he asked you for permission to use your name as Sterling's middle name, right?
yes,
And you gave him permission.
yes,
And you were close to your brother, the defendant, Zachary, right?
yes,
And as I understand it, you talked to him about every couple of days during the course of Sterling's life, right?
yes,
In fact, in addition, I should say, of talking to him, you also texted him pretty frequently, right?
correct,
So would you say that you had conversation with him 4 or 5 times a week?
yes,
So during Sterling's lifetime of maybe almost 4 months, would that be 50 times?
yeah, that's what the math comes out to.
Okay. You didn't know that the defendant used drugs during that time, did you?
No,
He never told you that?
no,
During those times you had contact with the defendant during Sterling's lifetime, the defendant never told you he had any concern about Sterling's health, did he?
no,
He never said that Sterling was having any trouble eating.
no, he did not.
He never claimed that Sterling was anything but a healthy baby, did he?
Correct,
He never told you that Cheyenne was depressed or anything like that, correct?
no, correct,
He never said that there was anything wrong with Sterling.
no,
He did tell you on one occasion, he asked you if you would be willing to take in Sterling, right?
correct,
He said that he wanted to make sure that if things didn't work out with Cheyenne, that Sterling would have a safe place to go, correct?
correct,
And did you volunteer to take Sterling?
yes,
Did he tell you that Sterling wasn't being properly cared for by Cheyenne?
no, he did not.
Did he say that he kind of doubted her taking care of him?
I think with her being a new mother, I think he had some questions if she was capable or not.
And do you remember having your deposition taken last week?
Yes, I did.
Did you say in your deposition that he told you he kind of doubted her taking care of him?
I possibly did.
Do you want to review it and see if you said that or not?
If that's what it says on there, then that's fine.
It's page 17, line 23. Sir, I'm going to circle that line. If you could just look at your deposition transcript where I've circled that few bolded paragraphs, okay? Okay, had a chance to do that?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. And this was your deposition that was taken on October 16th. Do you remember that?
yes,
We were in different rooms around the phone, right?
correct.
And you affirmed to tell the truth, right?
Yes,
Did you tell him tell me at that deposition that your brother kind of doubted her being Cheyenne taking care of Sterling?
I believe I might have said that.
Okay, what did you mean?
I think,
Thank you, sir.
I think just like I said, with her being a newer mother, and him being gone and just being a young single parent, I believe it would have been a question.
Okay, so he wasn't able to give you any specific cause to be concerned or anything he was talking about?
No,
It was more in general?
yes,
So whatever it is, it caused him to ask you to see if you would be willing to take in his son if things didn't work out, correct?
yes,
And were you able to express to him whether or not you would take in Sterling?
yes, I said I would,
You said you would?
yes.
Okay. Did the defendant ever ask you for any financial assistance during Sterling's life?
I don't recall,
If he had, would you provide it?
yes,
Were you a good resource for him?
I believe so,
And you said you have 5 children?
yes,
Did he ever ask you for any parenting advice for Sterling?
no,
If he had, would you have given it?
yes,
Now, as I understand, sir, you learned about Sterling's death from the defendant, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. But did you learn it in some other fashion?
Yeah, I did see it on the news. I can't remember the exact order, but I did see it on the news, and I know that he had called me. I can't remember the exact order.
And what did the defendant tell you had happened to Sterling?
We didn't really get into much detail on that, so I don't remember what he would have just said. But I know he said that he had passed away.
Did you ask what happened?
Yes.
And you don't remember what he said?
I don't think he said anything, because he didn't. I don't know if he knew, or I've never really even known exactly what happened to him, besides on social media.
And is that because you never met Sterling?
Possibly.
And you never saw Sterling during the course of his entire life, correct?
Correct.
You never went to the apartment at Alta Vista where the defendant lived with Sterling?
No, he did not.
You didn't know what was going on in the apartment?
No.
Thank you, sir. That's all the questions I have.
Redirect. Mr. Koehn, how far is Clarksdale from Alta Vista, Iowa?
I believe of about 750 miles.
Roughly where in the state of, just so the jury knows, I've been to Clarksdale, where is Clarksdale in Mississippi?
It is straight south of Memphis, about an hour and a half.
And how often do you get back to Iowa?
Probably once a year.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Redirect.
No, thank you, sir.
This witness be excused.
You may.
This witness remain in the courtroom. Sir, face me, raise your right hand. Promise testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth. If so, say I do. I do. Have a seat. What?
All right. Would you please state your name for the record?
Greg Nightingale,
Just spell your last name for us.
Nightingale.
All right. And I don't need your exact address, but where do you live?
Chester, Iowa.
Where is Chester?
Right on the Minnesota border on Highway 63.
And how long have you lived in or about that area?
Well, I've lived at that place for 6 months. Place prior to that, we lived 20 years,
Okay.
so, which was close by.
How long have you lived in Iowa?
Since 1994,
Where did you move from?
California.
All right. How do you know Zach Koehn?
Well, his mother was my school teacher in probably 4th grade, I believe it was, and went on from there. I remember when they adopted him when he was just a little sprite. They lived in California at that time, and then when we moved out here, they moved out, and we had our own kids, and Willis and Marilyn, which be his mother and father, they was our daycare for our younger girls when the wife worked, and took them in like their own. It was a wonderful situation. couldn't wish for better.
Now, let's clarify two things. Are you related to Zach Koehn?
Yep.
I think you told me you know her cousin.
Somehow like that. I know her, yes.
All right. And you were raised in that.
Yes.
And the school you're talking about, his mother sometimes taught when you were young.
She taught fourth, I believe it's fourth grade, I'm not sure, but that was Longview Mennonite School in Livingston, California. Before she was married.
That was before she was married?
Yeah, before she was married, yep.
And you attended Mennonite school?
Yes.
Where did you attend your Mennonite schooling at?
And Livingston, California.
And how long have you known Zach Koehn?
Pretty much full life. I mean, there's areas there growing up when we weren't together, but I mean, I've known him since he was, like I said, since he was in a high chair to today, so.
As I understand it, at some point you moved out here to Iowa.
Yep.
Did you move out here with your family or did you move by yourself?
No, moved out here with my family. I met a lady in Minnesota, just across the border, and we got married in '96.
At some time, did you leave them in that day?
Yeah, back, I was probably 17, 18 years old, somewhere in there.
Let's talk about that a little bit. And I don't mean to be, I'm not trying to be demeaning or anything, the minute.
I was lucky to be raised that way. It was a very, very good childhood growing up, and it could have been a lot worse.
Okay. All right, all that being said, that's not really what for you to talk about. Where are you currently employed?
Simply Essentials in Charles City, Iowa.
What do you do at Simply Essentials?
I'm a truck driver.
How long have you been employed at Simply Essentials?
For them directly for 3 months. I worked for David Nugent prior to that with Zachary, and we were contract haulers for David for Simply Essentials last year.
You worked for Nugent Nuggets.
Yes, sir.
And how long did you work for Nugent Nuggets?
Almost right at a year.
Now, so you were employed by the same. Were you employed there at the same time as that?
Yes.
Okay. And if I understand you correctly, you hauled broiler chickens?
Yes. Back then, yes.
All right. What would that consist of?
Well, sometimes a lot of chaos. We'd leave the plant in Charles City, and you would go anywhere in Minnesota, Iowa, or Wisconsin to load, mainly western Wisconsin. We would go as far north as St. Cloud, Minnesota to load, western Iowa, load chickens, and you'd bring them back to Charles City, and that was where they slaughter them at. That's where they process them at.
Now, how many days a week would this be?
5 generally.
It was usually Sunday night into Monday
Yep.
and continuing all week until Thursday into Friday morning.
Correct.
How long were the shifts supposed to be?
Well, that depended on where you were on the schedule to go for the week. I mean, if it was the St. Cloud north of there, that was a long run. It's almost 600 miles round trip plus your load time, and depending on how good the catchers were on getting the chickens loaded too.
That could be a problem, couldn't it?
Yes, it could.
As I understand it, it could take a while sometimes for them to catch the chickens.
Yeah, we have a much better crew now than we had at that time. We could spend hours there. They tried to schedule it on, I believe it was 45-minute load times, and that was not realistic, hardly ever.
So you could find yourself sitting there waiting?
Oh, yes. Yes, I mean, it's not uncommon for 2 to 3 hours, if not more, sometimes.
Was it uncommon for the sun to be coming up when you were coming home?
Definitely. A lot of times the sun was coming up when you were leaving the farm even.
So before you even got back to the plant, the sun was coming.
Correct. But the catching is done in the dark. They want it done at night. It's easier to catch the chickens when it's dark out, they're sleeping or so and such.
All right. Now, let's talk a little bit about a typical shift. I know it varies on the farm. But what time would you go to work?
Well, there again, it depends where we're loading at. If it's western, if it's St. Cloud, we had to leave a lot of times at 4 in the afternoon to be up there. If we had a 10 o'clock load time, you would have to leave by 4 to get through the Twin Cities, and then a lot of times you had traffic issues to deal with. So it was 4 o'clock. If it was a closer one, it would generally, we was always there by 6 to leave to head out, no matter where it was.
How much work did you have to do before you could actually leave?
Well, you'd have to do your pre-trip on truck and trailer. You'd have to hook up. And now we fuel at the yard. We didn't at that time, but you'd have to make sure your truck was full of fuel. And then you have to go out and weigh. You had to weigh out every time for an empty weight. When you come back, you got a heavy weight. So the time you hook trailer up, and depending if it was winters or summer, whether it was tarped or not, sometimes you had to untarp the trailer and roll it back and put it in place. It would be minimum 20 minutes, sometimes 30.
Now, then it would depend on how far away the farm was.
Correct.
And how long it took you to drive.
Correct.
And then as I understand it, you could spend hours and hours and hours sometimes waiting for the crew to catch the chickens and load.
If we have problems if they have problems with farm equipment, or some of them are two-story barns where they have to lay track in the barn to roll the cages in on so they can get them from one end to the other, that would take some time on the track barns.
So what you pull that microphone?
Yep. Okay, that better?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
And I think you told us that sometimes the sun would be coming up before you left the farm.
Yes.
And you'd have to drive back to the plant.
Yes.
And then you'd arrive back at the plant. What would you do then?
There again, it depended on the temperature outside. If you didn't have to untarp trailers, you'd have to go and strap on both sides of the trailer, back it into the fan shed first, then you'd have to undo 2 straps on each side. Then the trailers are self-contained with hydraulics that have a roof that raises on them to release the cages when you go to take the cages off. Well, we had to raise that roof up so they would get air through there. So by the time you drop your air, dolly trailer down, do your paperwork, you're another half hour there at least.
Now, did your truck have a sleeper cabin?
Yes.
Did Zach's truck have a sleeper?
No.
Zach's truck did not have a sleeper.
No. At first mine didn't, and then I got one that did have, so.
Now, we've heard some talk about logs being run on a tablet.
Yeah, I'm old school. I generally don't follow that too well. I did paper log.
Lots of drivers do paper logs.
Yeah, prefer them.
What's a double load?
Sometimes you'd be they'd schedule so many loads a night, and if they didn't have enough trucks to cover every load, sometimes we'd have to do a double load. Now, Minnesota, generally, we wouldn't do a double load up there, but or Arcadia, Wisconsin, we would do 2 loads. So you'd go do one, and you have to come back and get it. If there was another empty trailer there, you would hook it right away. If there wasn't one, you'd have to wait till 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning until the first empty come out, take it, and go back up and get your second load.
It's my understanding that all of this would have been reflected in the paper.
For the most part,
It's my understanding also that the double loads often were not reflected in the paper.
well, it depends. You can legally 14 hours total on duty time, 11 hours driving time. If it's, if your driving is within 11 hours, and your wait time was, within the 3, yes, you could legally do it. A lot of times, no, you couldn't. So sometimes the second load was logged, sometimes it wasn't, or logged with, you would take a minimum of 15 minutes to load, show on your log, and then you drive and you could make it work that way. But in reality, it was not shown that. They call it a liar's book for a reason.
Liar's book?
Yeah, liar book, log book, yes. Been that way for years.
Now, did you ever trade schedules?
Once in a while, yeah, for a night.
Drivers would trade schedules.
Yeah, if someone else had something going on, or
By had something else going on, that mean that they wouldn't drive at all?
no, you needed a later load time, a later time to load, or say if they had a Christmas program at school your kids did, you'd want to go to that. And Joe had a load time at 11 p.m. versus mine was at 7 p.m. I would switch that load so that I could attend that concert or whatever.
I got you.
Yeah.
And some people would even trade between companies. I mean, there are several companies that were doing these runs.
Right, but nobody else would drive our truck. It would, you would switch with a company, but they would still stay in their truck and go do that load. It wouldn't be that the guy from this company would jump in my truck and haul.
I understand. You basically just be switching load times.
Yes, yes.
That's not really clear with the company, though, because it doesn't really matter if the company.
Right. The company's still on a schedule for a load. For that load, it switches the load the time that truck will get loaded, theoretically.
Now, are there times, I know one of the things that goes on is the scale.
Yes.
Are there times when the scale doesn't work?
Yes. And in that situation, once in a while, we would punch 2 or 3 empty weights in a row when we get on there, so that if the scale did not work, when you come back loaded, the trailers were all the same, identical, so there was always the same empty weight. Now, when that happened, we'd have to go to the truck stop and pay $9.50, $10 each time for a weight ticket then for the other side. So if that happened, you would only have to pay once instead of twice up there. Because you already had your empty weight, it didn't have to be on the same slip for your heavy weight. It would be accepted that way. It was not supposed to be done, but they didn't give us a credit card, and we had to pay for our scale tickets. The Simply Essentials didn't, so it was money out of our pocket. We'd have to wait to get reimbursed for it. So it's $10 here and $10 there, it adds up in a week.
Now, if there were charges on your company credit card that were not authorized, that would be deducted from the pay?
Correct.
So that would be, you've got your net paycheck, but then that would come off below that line, wouldn't it?
Correct, yep.
Were scale tickets ever filled out by hand?
As far as the weight on it,
Maybe not the weight, but the time, things like that?
I don't believe that, I've never personally filled out the time, except for, there's a scale ticket and then there's a load slip. That was not a scale ticket, they didn't have a weight punched on it. That would have our bird count, the farm, like what temperature, weather was like, and that would be time you load, or start load and unload, and time you leave the farm. There was that ticket, but that wasn't a scale ticket.
Now, you're familiar with David Nugent?
Yes, sir.
I don't think you describe him as a good guy.
Yeah, I definitely, yeah.
My question is, was Mr. Nugent actually around when you guys finished your shift?
No.
He wasn't working. You guys were working third shift.
We're working third shift. David also owned some chicken barns that we would haul out of, and at them sites, yes, he would be there when we were hauling out. The other sites, no, very seldom would we see him.
So David knows what's supposed to happen.
Correct.
He doesn't necessarily know how it actually happens.
Correct. As long as we had our work done, it was
He's interested in the results.
correct, yeah, yeah.
Did you ever give Zach money to buy formula?
On 2 occasions that I recall, yes.
One of those was for Sterling
I
Capital.
believe so. 1 to 2 weeks, might have been 2 weeks.
Did you ever work for Freitag?
For a short amount of time, yes. Not a
Not
big,
really a great deal, what happened?
a real shyster. Put it that way. I hadn't even met the guy who drove his truck, and I am having to go to Mason City and bail him out of jail, so. I believe he's actually incarcerated right now for a weapons charge or something or another. He's not a nice guy.
Did Zach also drive for Freitag?
Yes, he did.
Zach actually incurred a considerable amount of debt as a result of something that happened with Mr. Freitag.
I believe so, yes.
There was some testimony about Zach's vehicle and some tires that were in the back seat of his vehicle.
Yes.
Where did those tires come from?
I don't know them exact ones. I did have some, he did bring me some I was going to mount on rims for him. I don't know if those are they probably are. I had mounted some tires on wheels for Zach because the tires were bad on the car.
He got some new tires to put on the vehicle.
Yes, and if I remember correctly, it was just tires, and I had removed them. If I had some rims of my own that would fit on that car, I had to mount them onto those wheels.
Just a minute. When was that? In relation to Sterling's death?
I would have to say with 2 to 3 weeks, maybe a week. It's been a while ago, so I don't recall exactly. I remember doing tires. I don't know the time frame.
Cross?
You're not testifying that you knew what was in the defendant's car on August 30th, 2017. It sounds like on some days you worked long hours for your job.
Yes,
Some days were better and you didn't have to work as many hours, is that right?
correct.
Some days you didn't even have to work an 8-hour day, correct?
I don't recall ever not working an 8-hour day, but there might have been some times, yes. That would have been early on when I first started.
You have how many girls?
3.
During that time frame when you're working long days, did you yourself go home?
Yes, I went home.
Did you see your girls?
A little bit, but I wasn't able, they're older, so, I mean, I'd seen them a little bit, but it was not much during that time, no.
But you knew what was going on with your family during that time.
Yes, and my oldest 20, and well, at that time would have been 19, and then I had a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, so it was, yeah, they would make sure that they'd come in and woke me up or needed school or something going on.
You said that you gave the defendant some money for formula.
Correct.
You did that on 2 occasions.
That I recall, yes, 2 occasions.
One time you gave him money about 2 weeks prior to the death of Sterling,
As a guess, yes, it was relatively in that time.
and you gave him $20, right?
If I remember correctly, yes.
And then before that time, maybe about 3-4 weeks before that time,
Mhm.
you gave him another $20.
I believe, yes, 20. I believe it was because that's about what the can of formula costs.
And he came and asked you for that?
Yes, he asked if I could have a little extra, and of course, all I had to do was ask. If I could do it, I would help him out.
Sure. How do you know that he needed the money for formula?
Well, it just, because he had told me he did.
He said he needed it for formula.
Yes, yes.
How did the defendant tell you that Sterling died?
We had worked that night, and I don't recall what time it was, between 11 and 12:30, somewhere in there. He called me on the phone and it told me that Sterling had passed away.
Did he tell you how he died?
He thought it was SIDS.
That's all I have.
Were you correct? You can step down. This witness excused. Freely. Next witness. You can stay in the courtroom too if you want to, sir.
Your Honor, this time we're going to offer the video deposition of Lynn Kemper.
How long are you?
Just about 25 minutes, I think.
Perfect. You have the transcript of it too?
We do.
That's what you were talking about earlier about.
That's correct.
This would be a 42-minute.
Right, so the court reported those to be excused. She does not need to report the video.
Right. I guess my point is that the disc would be a court exhibit.
This is evidence.
As would be a transcript.
We're on the video record. The approximate time is 3:30 p.m. This is the video deposition of Lynn Feaster in the case entitled The State of Iowa versus Zachary Koehn, case number FECR 011490 in the Iowa District Court for Chickasaw County. This deposition is being held at the offices of Chickasaw County Courthouse in New Hampton, Iowa. Today's date is October 24th, 2018. My name is Al Haver, the videographer. The court reporter is Alyssa Klaver. Will counsel please introduce themselves to the record, beginning with the noticing attorney?
My name is Les Blair. I am the attorney for the defendant, and I'm from the State Public Defender's Office in Dubuque, Iowa.
My name is Denise Timmons. I'm with the Iowa Attorney General's Office.
Would the court reporter please fill the witness?
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I affirm.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Lynn Feaster,
Could you spell your last name for us?
P-E-A-S-T-E-R,
And how do you spell the name?
L-Y-N-N,
And where do you currently reside?
1811 465th Street, St. Ansgar, Iowa.
And who lives there with you?
My wife, Glenda.
Do you have any children?
I have 2 daughters.
And I assume the fact that they're not living with you, that they're adults.
They are adults.
Yes. Okay. And where are you employed?
I am self-employed. I own my own business, Country Covered in Osage, Iowa.
And what is the Country Covered?
Country Covered is a bulk food store, coffee shop, bakery.
Okay. And how long have you been in that line of work?
We opened the store in 2001, so it'd be 17 years.
And does your wife work in the store?
Periodically.
Does she work outside the home?
No.
Okay. How do you know Zach Koehn?
I know Zach by being good friends with his father and mother, and when I was younger, would have socialized together with me and his mother, and so we've just been good friends all through the years.
Did you only know them in Iowa, or did you know them before they moved to Iowa?
I knew them before they moved to Iowa.
And where did you live? Well, at some point, did you move to Iowa?
Correct.
When did you move to Iowa?
1991, March.
And where did you live prior to that?
Atwater, California.
And is that where Zach lived with his family?
Right. or the actual town that we lived in would have been Winton, California, and they would have, I believe, lived in Atwater.
Okay. And how far away is Winton from Atwater?
3 miles.
All right. And is there let me just ask you this, is there a Mennonite or Christian community in the Atwater, Winton area?
Yes.
Okay, and you were a member of that?
Correct.
And Zach's family were members of that?
Yes.
And tell me, how well do you know Zach? Or at least, how well did you used to know Zach?
I used to know Zach quite well. I haven't had much to do with him in the last 5 years probably, so I don't know him very well.
And Zach he actually refers to you as uncle?
That's correct, yeah.
Did they move to Iowa before or after you?
They moved after we did.
All right, so you moved first?
Right.
And describe for me, as Zach was growing up, how much contact did you have with him up until about 5 years ago?
As he was a child at home, we would have been together probably once every 2 weeks, plus went to church together, so every Sunday basically. After he became a teenager, it would have dwindled quite a bit that we would have been together. Then it was more like just on holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Okay. Now, I think we talked a little bit about the fact that you were a member of the Mennonite faith, or I think you refer to it as the Christian faith?
Right.
Okay. And are you a member of a Mennonite faith community in St. Ansgar or in this area?
In this area, our church is actually addressed to be McIntyre, Iowa.
Okay. Now, do you hold any particular role within that church?
I would be a deacon in this church, in that church.
What does it mean to be a deacon within the church?
A deacon is an individual that is basically in charge of financial matters in the church. Is our primary obligation. We would take care of the funds, also help the ministry when there is needs in reaching out, but we would be the ones that would reach out to just the poor people or those that may need some financial assistance or some work done or, help that way. That would be our role.
No. And I apologize if I ask you anything that offends you. That's not my intention. I'm just trying to delve into this a little bit more.
Sure.
What does it mean to be a Mennonite or within that Christian faith community?
Objection, relevance.
Background information. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay. What it means is to consider that you need Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, and that you become then what we would refer to, and I think a lot of people would, as being born again, and to stay true and faithful. The baptismal vows would say that we would try to help each other to be Christians to make it to heaven, and also that we are accountable one to another, and so we open our lives to that, and basically try to live a life that would exemplify Jesus Christ according to the Bible.
And I guess my next question is, to some extent, well, obviously you live within the greater community at large.
Correct. We have a conference.
But the Christian faith community that you're talking about, to some extent, holds itself apart from the other people who live around you. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say, even though we are not a closed society, as some people may assume. We are open to others.
All right. Is it fair to say that Mennonites would prefer a simple or rural life, at least historically?
That would be true to say.
Has that evolved recently? Is that something that is changing?
To some extent, it would be changing from the standpoint that the rural lifestyle of such as farming has become very difficult to maintain. And so we have reached out. Most of our people would have a job or have a service business for the community.
Do some people confuse the Mennonite faith with the Amish faith?
Yes, they do.
And if you can, in simple terms, how are they similar? How are they different?
They would be similar in the fact that we are all considered to be a part of the Plains people, I believe. That's another name probably for Mennonites, but or Amish people. Well, I don't exactly understand the Amish faith due to the fact that I grew up in California and we were basically the only Mennonite group that I grew up with. I've learned more about other Mennonite groups since we moved here, but I would say that we believe in the following of, and the leading of the Holy Spirit, and they may as well that the Holy Spirit leads God's people, and we do not need to stop at any given era of time, such as with a horse and a buggy or an electricity or one color of car or not another color of car.
So I guess what you're saying is one of the big differences is that within the Mennonite faith, you don't have to stop at a point in time and you can embrace technology, at least to some extent.
Correct. And I don't know, but we do also believe that, things that are highly esteemed among men are an abomination to God, and so therefore try to not necessarily go with just the middle of the road, but be a humble people.
Now, Zach grew up as a Mennonite in a Mennonite family, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Was he a member of the faith community in which you were also a member?
Yes, he was.
Okay, and you're familiar with his family, aren't you?
I am, yes.
All right. Are there traditional, at least historically, are there traditional gender roles within a Mennonite family?
Yes, there is.
What are those?
Generally speaking, and historically, even possibly a little bit more than now, but the man would be the breadwinner. He would be the one that would make the living, have the business, generally speaking. The lady, as a wife, would keep the home and do the cooking and the laundry. And the children then would just help out where they could and where it's needed.
When there's a young child in the home, is it generally the mother's role to take care of that child?
To a large extent, yes. And there's a lot of fathers, though, that would be involved in that, of course, and as the father, as the leader in the home, would kind of oversee that, in a right way, of course, in a godly way.
Okay. Now, have those gender roles started to relax a little bit to some extent because the faith communities have kind of gotten away from farming and gotten more into other areas of employment?
They would have relaxed to some extent, especially with the teenage girls would probably get more jobs, probably more apt to get a job, I should say, now than they would have been 15, 20 years ago. So mothers would tend to work out of home maybe a little more now than what they once did.
But in Zach's situation, he grew up in a home where his mother did not work outside of home.
That would be correct. At least for the most part. Every now and then she might have taught for a short period of time in one of our schools, a local school, but
When you say one of our schools, are your schools separate from the general community school?
correct, yeah, we have our own private school.
Okay. And your school goes through what grade?
The 8th grade.
Okay. And it doesn't go beyond the 8th grade?
Correct.
In the scale of, well, and I'm talking about when Zach was growing up, was the home he grew up in, was that a fairly traditional Mennonite home?
From what I'd be aware of and know of, it was, yes.
Was his father the breadwinner?
Yes.
And I take it his mother raised the children and took care of the home and that kind of thing?
Right.
Now, at some point, did Zach leave the Mennonite community?
Yes, he did.
How does that happen?
Well, maybe I should ask this question first if I can. When you say leave the Mennonite community, do you mean he left the way of the Mennonite faith? Or when you say the community, that's what you're referring to, correct?
That is kind of what I referred to, yes.
Well, generally what happens in a situation like that would be, and I don't remember the exact details of Zach, but would be that they would desire to go the ways of the world, what we would call the world, which is like, we don't have a radio or a TV, and maybe they would start to like certain music off the radio, and they would desire that the way of a Christian is too hard, and so then they would start living what we would call for self, and from there they would indulge in different things that I would guess what I would say as a general public would. I don't know that for a fact, but
Okay. And if they don't stop doing that, and I take it this takes place at some point after their age of majority.
correct, yeah.
What is their age of majority? Within the community?
I would say probably, generally it would be around 16, 17. If I understand the question of majority, right?
I understand. If they don't return to faith, if they don't resume living the Christian life, then at some point they are no longer part of the church?
That's correct.
Is there a specific term for that, or?
We believe in church discipline, and at some point in time when they have left the Christian walk, then we would excommunicate them from the church.
Do they have to go all the way off the Christian lifestyle, or do they just need to deviate a little bit?
As what happens is a person that's walking in the church or in the community the right way, the way the brotherhood would feel comfortable with, they would be basically just, we would just fellowship with them. As people start to veer off what I'm going to call the path of the church, then we would visit with them, we would plead with them, and the the church discipline is based on biblical facts, and yet it's also a true way to describe it, I think, is it's just like how parents discipline their children. It's a love act, and it's an act of reaching out to try to restore them back. But as they are not immediately, they don't go immediately from one ditch to the other, so to speak, that where they're walking the truth, and then all of a sudden, if they're not, then they're automatically excommunicated. That doesn't happen that way.
Is it fair to say that then, I mean, based upon what you told me, is it fair to say then that a Mennonite upbringing is kind of a pervasive and distinctive? It's different?
Yeah, I would say yes, it is.
And it kind of runs through all the different aspects of a person's life?
Correct.
I don't think I have anything further.
Where in your faith is there anything that would support not caring for your child?
There is nothing.
So that's not taught for any reason.
Do not care for your child.
Correct.
No, it's not.
And you talked about how the father is the leader of the home, and usually the responsibilities of housework and cooking and those kinds of things will fall to the female. But as the leader of the home, is it the father's responsibility to ensure?
Yes.
Is it important as the leader of the home, as the father within your faith, within your community, to provide basic food and shelter for your family?
Yes.
Is it important to put food on the table?
Yes.
Is it important to bathe and keep clean your children?
I would say it is. I believe it would be in the community.
To your knowledge, did Zach in any way grow up in an abusive home?
Not that I'm aware of.
And to your knowledge, was he well cared for?
Yes.
Zach was excommunicated at age 16, is that right?
I believe so. I don't know exactly, but if that's what you have on the records, more than likely yes.
When he was a teenager.
Right.
After he was excommunicated, what kind of contact did you have with him?
Basically, the only main contact I would have had been over the phone. Like stated earlier, maybe I would have went to his folks' place for Thanksgiving lunch, and he would have been there. That would be the extent of it.
Fair to say that occurred 3 to 5 times a year that you would speak with him?
Yes, at the most.
And that was from the time that he was excommunicated until 5 years ago, is that right?
Possibly more so at the beginning of that excommunication period than toward the end of the year.
And you said you haven't had any contact with him in the last 5 years?
I can't prove that. 5 years, something like that. It's been quite a spell.
And prior to that, the contact was rare?
Right.
I don't have anything else, thank you.
Zach actually continued to live in his parents' home for several years after he was quote-unquote excommunicated, didn't he?
I believe so. They're on today record at 3:53 p.m.
All right. Pretty good, right on time. Well done. 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, continue to heed the admonition. Do not watch news accounts, do not do any research on your own. We will see you in the morning. How many witnesses tomorrow?
One, maybe two.
Okay, so there'll be a good chance that we'll be done earlier in the day.
That would be my guess.
Okay. As I said, our problem is we'll probably be done early tomorrow morning or maybe around noon. But we have one witness, and that's somebody coming from out of state for the defendant that won't be available until next Tuesday. So we'll have to separate for several days, or a full day or over the weekend, and then resume on Tuesday, hear that witness, do closing arguments, and submit the case finally on Tuesday. And that's just the way things work when you're dealing with people coming in from out of state. So with my apologies, we'll see you in the morning. And I won't bring donuts because I think we have enough.